Welcome to Letters from the Chosens. I am Naomi Major. Thank you so much for taking the time to join and hear my stories and hear the stories of those who've been on the show. So today I wanted to share about how I got reconnected with my biological family. And so the conversation came up in my last discussion with wonderful Dan and Tanetta. So it gave me the idea to share with all of you how I got connected with my family. Now, the whole journey began when my mom received an unexpected email, and that planted the seed for me to start to desire and to pursue getting connected with my family. So before we get into it, I want to go over reflection questions for you to think about in relation to your own journey and your own story. And I hope that it is helpful to you. All right, so number one, what is something you would like to know about your past or your family history? Two, what has motivated or inspired you to learn more about your past, yourself, or your family history? And lastly, who was someone you would like to talk to in order to learn more about yourself or your past? All right, let's get into it. Every story is important, and every story needs to be heard by someone, whether an audience of 1 or 1 million. Our stories are valuable because we have no idea the ripple effect it can have on generations to come. So join me in listening to stories of how unlikely people became unexpectedly connected. Their stories reveal that we were never meant to face life alone. And in helping one another, we end up finding ourselves and our purpose. Welcome to Letters from the Chosens. So I'm about 15, 16 years old, and my mom gets an email. She's sitting in the kitchen and she receives an email from back home. It's either from our missionaries who had connected us or from my former Sunday school teacher, Maggie, who also worked alongside the missionaries. And so in the email, it informed us that my eldest sister, Sister Fia, had passed away. And that was pretty much all we knew. Didn't know what had happened or the details of it, just that Naomi's eldest sister has passed. When I received that news, I prayed to God that the middle sister, Akos, my elder sister, would not die before we met. Now, here's the background on that. My aunt had passed away, and I heard later when I connected my family that my biological mother had taken care of him after her sister passed. Then my mother also passed, mid-30s to late 30s, like 36 years old. And then my grandmother shortly after. And then I gotten the news about my eldest sister, Sister Fia, had also passed, 30s or so, if that, had also passed away. So I prayed that this cycle that was occurring with these early deaths would not hit my sister. And then later I prayed that for myself, that it would not hit me too. Receiving that news put the seed in me to want to reconnect with my elder sister before anything happened to her. So that was really important to me. It seemed like I was losing the women in my life and my family, and I didn't want anything to happen to my last surviving sibling, Akosua. I call her Akos, is her nickname, before we got to meet. And that was my prayer to God. So that went on the back burner until about college. When I got into college, I got involved in our student unions, and I got invited into the African Student Union. And they were, I was mostly just a member, and then later they had me as a secretary at some point during my college experience. But the president of our African Student Union had an issue with me. So she had found out I was adopted, and my parents had come on like family day before, and we gone out to eat or hung out with my friends. So she probably had seen me with my family, but apparently she knew I was adopted. I didn't share my testimony. I didn't tell people, I'm adopted or this, unless you're my close friend. I'm just another student on campus. And so in one of our conversations, she had told me that she believed that adopted children were all screwed up. I remember going into my uh, dorm and telling my one friend about it. She lived across the hall from me, and she was ready to go and fight this girl. And let me tell you about her and her past and da 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 da. And I'm like, it's okay. It's all right. What it revealed is like, even the things that my friend shared about this particular person, what it told me was, okay, everybody has a past and everybody has things they've been through. And when people lash out at you about something, simply facts about who you are that has nothing to do with them, it's revealing their own hurt or their own insecurities. And there's nothing you can do about that. And so from that, even when we would have, we had like a dance performance and they didn't include me in it, and so it's like, it's okay. It was the idea of, you're not African enough, you can't be a part of it, you can't dance. It's like, I'm just like, it's okay. I know who I am, and I'm not going to allow this person to dictate what I do or don't do. And it just revealed to me, it reveals to you people's hearts towards you, it reveals to you who is your friend and who's not your friend. What did happen is God used it to push me to learn more about my culture. And that's what I started to do, to learn more about my background and my Ghanaian culture and my Ashanti culture of who I am. The other part was a desire to connect with my family, to know more about my past, learn more about my people by connecting with my family. And it kind of it watered that seed, that prayer that I had prayed about meeting, reconnecting with my biological sister. I ended up calling my mom in tears about how I have to go back to Ghana. I have to go back home. I have to see my sister again, and I miss a coast, and I got to go back. I have to go back home. And I was a wreck on the phone talking with my mom. And so what my mom had said was, your father and I already been thinking about this. And what we're going to do is, when you graduate, we'll go back home. The three of us will go back home and see your family after you graduate. And so that gave me such peace and comfort in the whole situation. When adopted or foster families are confronted with those questions or confronted with those situations where their child wants to go back and wants to reconnect with their family, the big thing is to focus on why they want to do it. I think that's a big test of readiness. By the time that I went, I was in my early 20s. I just graduated from college. So I was mature enough to step into that and face the issues and challenges that would come up. And so that's also something else to consider. Why I wanted to go back was, one, to know about the culture that had shaped me and made me who I am. And then more importantly, I also wanted to know about the people who had influenced me into who I've become, and especially my sister. Since I grew up with my biological family, I knew who I wanted to reconnect with. I had names and people I asked for, because I was aware by the age of 7 who my sister was and where I came from, and the fact that I was being adopted. So with that, for me, my third main reason was reconnecting with my biological family. And there was other people I wanted to see because I knew who they were. But the biggest thing was I want to reconnect with my sister. In speaking with my other friends who have been fostered or adopted, one of the things is that has come up is that desire that at some point in their journey, they've had questions about their past, about their childhood, about their family, about the circumstances surrounding their displacement from their family, their community, like what happened. The way I look at it, and I hope this is helpful to those who are being fostered or adopted, and for the families, guardians, the adults that are alongside with them, supporting them, that this helps both sides in addressing bringing two families together and two different dynamics together when you're faced with those situations. So the first advice I would give to the children adopted, fostered, is to not feel guilt about wanting to know your biological family. That desire to know your background, your story, why you were adopted or fostered, and then wanting to reconnect with those people is really a desire for connection and identity. You want to know about yourself. It's very hard to know about the histories of your nation and to know the histories of different people groups, to hear the stories of other family members, to hear the stories about your friends and their childhood and their upbringing and not know about yours, right? So there's a gap when we don't know about ourselves. And we can not just feel left out, but we can feel as if something is missing. So for a lot of people, it's just piecing together the stories. It's not always due to any type of insecurity. It's not a dissatisfaction. I'm not satisfied. I'm not happy with what's been given to me, because that's where the guilt can come in of I'm ungrateful. This isn't good enough. That's not the root of it at all. The root of it is identity. I want to know the pieces that came together to form my story. And as an adult, there's gaps and I don't know what they are. And it's hard to answer certain questions, or it's hard to move in certain places when I have those blanks or those question marks. And so what the desire is identity, knowing more about who I am, knowing more about my purpose. And the other is connection, for those who desire that, is connecting with the people from your past, your parents if they're still alive, your siblings if they're alive. Same as many times, same as in a fostered or adopted child is seeking and desiring to know about their past or to reconnect with their family. A lot of the times, those family members have that same desire. They have the same questions of, oh, I wonder what happened to so-and-so. I wonder where they're at now. I wonder who they became, what they grew up to be like, what they look like now. Are they married? They have questions too. So sometimes when it works out well, it helps to answer questions on both ends. So it's a big thing for connection, connecting people who have been torn apart for whatever the circumstances may be and may desire on both sides to know each other. That was actually in my situation. When I was in college, we found out later there was a man who had called asking for me and asking me by name, and we're like, who is this person? It's an international call, and my college had reached out to me. Somebody keeps calling the campus asking for you, and they're calling, I don't know, admissions line, but to the college with my name, saying they need to get into contact with me. So it all worked out well. And so I was called down and they showed me the number. They gave me the name of the man who was calling, and they asked, do I know this person? Have I been there? And I'm like, well, I'm from Ghana. I do have family there. But I said, I don't know that name. So I took that information, I took the name, I went to my parents about it. My parents are like, no, we don't know anyone by that name. My mom had come to uh, my country, but she had come to the town that I had grown up in, and she'd met family members, and it's like, no, and that last name, no, this isn't anybody that I know of. And so, and no one has in all these years mentioned that name, mentioned that last name to us, and no one has reached out about this person. So we were like, disregard this. And I believe they just ended up blocking the number. I'm not sure how they handled it on the campus end. So a few years later, we found out that this man who had been calling was my uncle's wife's sister husband. Okay. So I just call him my cousin. So my cousin's husband, he had spoken with my sister, and on behalf of my sister has said he would try to help her to find me. And he had a computer and internet, and he works in the medical field, and so he's pretty well to do back home. And he had searched up the name that my sister had given him and was able to find me and find out the college I was at and the stuff, and was able to reach out. So it ended up just being family related, and it was actually my sister behind all of that trying to find me. And so again, sometimes it's really just a desire for connection. My sister told me later she was getting ready to get married at the time, and she didn't want to get married without me. And I can even imagine my sister, because I know my sister's personality, just being so distraught. And it's just so funny, like the timeline. I'm like, was it the same time that I'm crying about wanting to go home and wanting to see my sister? My sister is also back home, crying about her sister, her only living sister, not being at her wedding, and her enlisting the help, are we going to call him my cousin's husband, to help her to find me and to get the message to me. Because by that point, over 10 years has passed. We're getting into 15 years since we've seen each other, and we've lost contact with each other. And she just doesn't have those resources to connect with me. So all that to just say, sometimes it's on both ends. Both the adopted child may be searching and wondering and has questions, and so may the biological family members, or family member may also be desiring and searching, has questions, want to connect. And so we just keep that why, that reason in mind, and not make it as a guilt or a dissatisfaction. No, it's a desire for identity. It's a desire to connect. One of the things I did was, when I had that desire, I communicated it with my parents. I trusted my parents, and I called my mom. I knew I could tell my mom how I was feeling and the burden on my heart and the things I was going through, and feeling like what would help me out is to go home. But then I also remembered why I really wanted to go home. Above everything else, I wanted to see my sister. So I would advise those who desire to connect with their families is to find somebody you trust, whether it's your adopted parents or guardian, a good friend, someone you can get counsel from, that you can share about what you're feeling, what you desire, in regards to your biological family. And they can walk with you emotionally through it, and they can help plan for you. It's not something you should go alone. And so I was blessed that my mom was on it, and my mom already had that on her heart and mind. And so she spent that time doing the research. And, okay, let's get together the visas and our passports updated and all that process of going through. She took that time to work it out. So I wasn't trying to figure all that out, and the emotional side and even the when I see my family again, just those emotions that were coming up. So communicate with someone you trust and communicate your why. The other thing I would say is to pray about it. Praying about how you want to pursue and how you should pursue is really, really important. Some people just write a letter, they communicate a letter and they have no meeting. Some people want to meet their biological family. Some desire to sustain a relationship with them, meet them, and build a relationship, which was something I was interested in doing. Some just want to hear their story. Mom, dad, how did you meet me? What happened? And they're good with life. They don't need to go back. They don't really have a lot of questions. They're good with knowing the background of what got them to where they were, and they're good to move forward. So I would say just praying about, again, what you desire and praying about how you should pursue and how far you pursue. And that's really with knowing the doors to open and how far to open those doors. For me, mine was a little simpler because I knew my biological family. So I already had background, and so did my parents. Not every door should be open, and that's where prayer and having counsel, somebody that you're walking with through it, helps you. The other thing is to not do it alone. And I've mentioned that, but there's going to be challenges that comes with it and burdens that comes with it, guilt that may come, opposition that may arise. Everybody involved is going to have their different opinions and motives about the whole thing. There may be resentment that comes. Some are going to be joyful and excited and grateful. And so you're never quite sure what you're going to step into. So going through that process with somebody, communicating to them your desire, your plans, and just having somebody who's praying with you and walking with you through it. Even aside with just the whole process and what you may encounter, it's just a heavy burden, lots of tasks. Even if you know your biological family, the process to reconnecting can be challenging and daunting and overwhelming. So it's really good to do it with someone else. Doing it with someone else also allows somebody to walk with you through the journey so that after you've done it, what's next? So after you've connected to whatever extent that you've connected with your family, what do you do next? What happens next? How do you respond? What boundaries do you set? There can be lots of questions. Guilt can come up so much. So they can be someone who can speak to the situation and can give you clarity and give you sound mind, speak to emotions, calm the fears, and settle you and get you off track so that this doesn't send you kind of spiraling downward. The other thing I would say for adoptees or fostered children reconnected with their biological family is to keep in mind your reason for it. Write down your purpose for pursuing your biological family. What do you hope to learn from the situation? Because distractions will come, opposition will come. And so just write down somewhere your why. Why am I doing this? If you're continuing a relationship, why you're continuing a relationship, because a lot of that connection is tied to purpose. And whenever purpose is going to be established and built, opposition and distractions will come. And so, but when you know why you're doing, the who you're being called to, you can stay focused on track and you won't get deterred. It won't send you running away because there's purpose, there's destinies that you're going after. It's not just going back to this place or seeing this culture. No, there's people and they're tied to you. They're connected to you. And so there's a destiny and a purpose that's going to be exchanged. There's something that God wants to establish or build in you. I would also like to add not blaming yourself. That was something that had come up when I went back home. I had a family member that was upset about me not coming home before and this and that. And they just felt some kind of way about stuff. And I ended up crying actually, but I was just so overwhelmed that day that anything could have made me cry. But at the end of it, it was like, what can you do now? You know? And my cousin has spoken to me like, don't even worry about this person, like next, because it's the past is the past. So the way, I've learned to approach it is, there's nothing I can do about the past, you know, there is nothing I can do about the past, but there is something that I can do about today. And so let's start with today. So the past, I may not have even been there, may not have been born yet, or I may have been too much of a child to be able to make any decisions for myself. But today we can do something. So if you really desire a relationship, if you really desire for purpose to be established, for good to come out of this, right? For there to be life in a situation, then let's move forward with today, with what we can do. That's a great way to take away any of the blaming, any of the guilting that some family members may come with when you reconnect. And some people, you got to just leave them where they're at. If they want to live in the past, if they want to live in what they didn't get, if they want to live in what you didn't do, you have to leave them there until they choose to leave that place. That goes into my next thing for my fellow foster adoptees is to be willing to release those people. The way I've learned to view my family, and what really helped me was viewing my biological father this way, is that I have my Father in heaven. He is my source of life. He loves me unconditionally. And every other person is an overflow. They are the blessing. They don't complete me. They don't fulfill me. They are not my creator, anything like that. They are an overflow of the love of God in my life. They are my blessing, and they are blessings to me. But my identity, my worth, all of that comes from God. I already have a father. I have a family. I have a spiritual family. And now everyone else is an additional blessing. It allowed me to set boundaries, to be able to release people who want to stay in the past, or who want to guilt you, or who want to blame you for situations that are outside of your control, that were beyond you. You have to pause and look at some adults and be like, okay, I was 6. Like, can we move on? Or, this was like, 30 years ago. Was I even born? Like things that they're bringing up, being able to release them, and your identity not being rooted in that person. You can function without them, and they can function without you too. And so your desire is not to do that. Your desire is to be able to walk with them. But if that's where they want to stay, sometimes that's where you have to allow them to be. So the last thing I would say is, when you go to pursue your biological family, is to do it with gratitude and with blessing. A lot of people involved in it did it with your best interest in mind, and they wanted to give you better. There may be people who acted out of selfish gain or took advantage, but think of those who had your best interest in mind and wanted good for you. And so go in with that, with a grateful attitude when pursuing your biological family, for what God has given you, for the family He has given you now, for the community He has given you, and for those who helped you in your past. those who stepped up and filled in those gaps, going in with gratitude and gratefulness for them. And that's what I will leave you with. I just want to encourage those again who are asking those questions for the families, adopted families, foster families, to be supportive and encouraging and to join alongside their child through that journey, because it's a desire for connection and a desire for identity, really just a strengthening of identity for the adopted or foster child to feel no guilt and to know that they're pursuing answers that they need in order to move forward. But it's not just moving forward, it's really a setup for purpose. God is using those relationships to position us to become who we need to become and to fulfill the destiny that He has for us. God has redeemed us, He has set us apart, every single person, for a purpose. And in part of that journey is sometimes meeting people who are necessary for the fulfillment of our purpose. And we have no idea what role they will fill. And sometimes just answering those questions, we don't know, just even to what it does for us, self-esteem wise, confidence wise, and just solidifying our identity so we can move confidently in the earth. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I would love to continue talking about this more. And if you have any questions for me about my journey, or if you're in that situation as a foster adopted parent, or you are an adoptee who is going, or foster child who's going through those questions, feel free to email and contact or DM me on social media, and I would love to share with you or just to pray for you through your journey. And I just want to remind you, as we've been talking about identity, that you are loved. You are loved by God. You are loved and loved by God, and He has chosen you to fulfill His good purpose. Until next time, be blessed.